as we resume, we're now confronted with a new word, Bleisure. There was always the question about business travel in the wake of the pandemic. When would it return? How would it return? Where would it return? And how big would it be? And then we had to realize that it was being redefined. As more and more people were digital nomads, as more and more people were working remotely, as more companies were revising their HR policies to let people do just that, the word office was definitely being redefined. Then the question then becomes, to what extent can this new word, bleisure, and business travel, when it does make that comeback, and it's starting as you know, to what way can that lead the world to sustainability through that avenue? And to discuss that, I'd like to welcome the moderator of our next panel. Please welcome Birka Valentin, the Sustainability Lead for Strategic Projects from Amadeus.
Good morning, everyone. Warm welcome also from my side for those here in person on the second day and those virtually connected. As Peter said, my name is Birka Valentin. I'll just introduce myself quickly for those who don't know who I am. I'm Sustainability Lead for Strategic Projects at Amadeus IT Group. I belong to a team, a central corporate sustainability team that is, has many roles, but one of the roles is setting the corporate sustainability strategy for the company, and in that, of course, also setting, for example, the climate targets that the company has. Now, in this process of defining the strategy, business travel is an important element for us. It is especially an important element on the indirect emissions for us that comes up, and we do see internally that there's quite a shift, what Peter was just going to, especially through the remote working that we have as well, and the demands of our employees in terms of wanting to connect more and more business travel with leisure activities and leisure travel while they're at it. And so we see that change, we see the bleisure change, and I know we are not the only ones in it, and so we are here today to take the next 45 minutes to discuss a little bit more what is this bleisure trend in general, where is it going to, what opportunities are there for companies and challenges as well, internally and externally, and how it can help to push for more sustainability within the companies, but also within the entire travel and tourism sector. And for that, we will have 4 panelists. We have 2 virtually and 2 in person. I have the pleasure of inviting first the ones that are in person. The first one is Inge Huijbrechts, Global Senior Vice President, Responsible Business, Safety and Security from Radisson Hotel Group. Come on up. Then we have, I think you can choose your seat, Inge. But I'll sit there. Then we have Jehan, Director of Public Affairs from the EuropCar Mobility Group, joining us in person as well. Coming up, very good. And then we have 2 virtual people joining us. I don't know if we can see them already on screen. There we are. Good. The first one on your left side is Brune Poirson. She's Sustainability Officer from Accor Group. Hi, Brune. Thank you for joining us. And the lady on the right is Catherine Logan, Regional Vice President of the Global Business Travel Association, GBTA. Hi, Catherine. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's see if this works. Yep, that works right away. Very good. Thank you all for joining us here today. It is, I think, a very great panel for several reasons. One is because we have a bit of a mix. We have a mobility provider, transportation, and we have accommodation, and then we have an association here that knows the content of all of that. So I think it's a very great mix where we will have a lot of different perspectives and knowledge to be shared. And the second, and for me the most exciting one, is the fact that all of the companies presented here are companies that have already committed to the Science Based Target Initiative. All of them have committed to setting climate targets in line with what science tells us what to do. And personally, I'm also curious because I certainly belong to this bleisure trend, I guess. That now I have a name for it. I guess we are all kind of belonging to it already, I assume. I just recently actually came back from 3 weeks of working and holidaying on an island, and it was definitely the first time that, well, I rented a car, so that for a longer time than I usually do, and I also had a bit of a different perspective and needs in terms of accommodation and whatever I needed in that for the 3 weeks. So I'm curious to understand a little bit better of what that all means for all of you, the trend, and if it is really a possible catalyzer for sustainability in the sector. Before we start, and I don't know if everyone's really familiar with bleisure, I know business travel, yes, but I would like for Catherine to start out with giving us a little bit of a context in terms of what, well, first of all, a little bit of context in business travel in general. I know we already had a panel yesterday on it, but just give us a bit of where we stand, where you think we're going, bleisure, what it means for us as a starting point. Catherine, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Birka, and thank you very much for having me. Okay, so in terms of business travel, I don't think anybody in this room doesn't appreciate how hard a hit business travel took in 2020. It basically fell by 54% in terms of business travel, spend on business travel. And so the stats I'm using for this are from our BTI Outlook. It recovered slightly in 2021 by 5.5%. We're expecting it to recover by a further 34% in 2022, but it won't be at pre-pandemic levels in terms of spend until 2026. So obviously, as I say, business travel has taken a significant hit. However, I'm sure many of you will have been through airports recently, and it does feel like it's certainly coming back, or travel's certainly coming back. But I think following the pandemic, there is a real drive for it to come back differently. Sustainability is clearly a really top priority for most organisations, and we have been really looking at sustainability over the last 12 months. And we did a big study at the start of this year. We went to the industry, spoke to buyers and suppliers, and we also did an external survey with government officials and think tanks and so on. And what became clear is that 89% of people within our industry see sustainability as a moderate or a high priority. 80% of them have a sustainability program or sustainability team in place, and 76% are planning to incorporate sustainable practices into their travel policies. And in terms of what sort of things they're looking at, it's around reporting, it's around measuring the environmental impact of business travel, it's engaging employees on decisions and starting to integrate sustainability into travel policies. And in terms of what's where the priority is, it's very much for the industry. It's currently around emissions, and while certainly taking one trip as opposed to several will have an impact, the social impact of staying in a place for a longer period of time is not right at the top of the priority list for organisations in comparison to the climate impact. Whenever we looked at the sort of sustainable development goals that the UN put out, basically the buyers were saying very much that it was about prioritising responsible consumption and innovation, while suppliers were more around the social objectives. So that will give you a little bit of a context as to what our industry is thinking around sustainability. But then, as Birka was saying, there's a shift in working patterns. We all worked from home, or many of us worked from home for a very long period of time, it demonstrated that the technology worked. And organisations saw that people could work remotely and things could get done. And, and now offices are open, and we asked our membership recently in a recovery poll, which we do every couple of months. We said, what's your in-office policy? And only 12% are expecting people to be back in office full time. 20% are expecting people to be working remotely full time. And there's a 68% where it's hybrid, where people are expected to work in the office some days, but permitted to work from home other days. So that definitely does open up a little bit of freedom to move, to work elsewhere. And then whenever we dug into that hybrid or fully remote working policy, and we said, right, okay, do the people have to be in the near the office? And what they said was 44% said employees are allowed to work remotely for an extended period outside the office or outside the city, state or province that they're typically based. So that suddenly means that from a working perspective and an employee perspective, that opens up that possibility for extended working elsewhere. And Birka, you give a great example of working where you are, and I would sort of term that a workation. And I feel like Bleisure is it's extended to cover three, what I would view as three very distinct groups. There's as the word sounds, it's a mix of business and leisure, but it could be that it's an extended trip. So you maybe are going somewhere, you need to be there, you need a large number of meetings, and so instead of going for several trips, you do one big trip and you enjoy the weekend in the location, or you extend your trip into the weekend. It could be that you're working from another location for several weeks, or it could be that you're relocating somewhere entirely different for a period of time, and I would term that like a digital nomad. It has been said that this is something that's really appealing to younger people, but certainly I know of people within my age group, and while I'm very young at heart, I wouldn't necessarily put myself in, I'm not in the millennial bracket. People are really taking advantage of this flexibility to live and work in different places. And I think another thing that one of the greatest issues corporations are facing at the minute is the war for talent. And this could be the difference between getting a prime candidate or not, or making sure that you have very happy, satisfied and fulfilled employees by offering that flexibility. So that's my take on where business travel is and Bleisure.
Thank you, Catherine. I think that gives us a little bit of a background already and a better idea of what we're talking about. You already touched on several points that I hope we will have a chance to coming back to through our conversation now. From what I see, we can break this up a little bit in two parts. And I would like to focus first on the more internal one. So the change within the companies and what the employees are requiring, is that impacting travel policies internally, and all of that shift that includes. That's a bit not the demand side. Then we will do a turn towards the supply side, looking into what does it mean for those providing services and products throughout the traveler journey, in terms of their offering and how to satisfy that changed demand. And obviously connect all of those with what does it mean for sustainability. Inge, I would like to start with you on the demand side. Also as a bit of an introduction, give us an idea about your own business travel, the situation right now. Has it resumed? Are you expecting it to resume to a level that you had it before? Do you even want it to resume to a level you had it before? And what are you noticing internally in your organization of changing needs?
Yes, thank you. And the report by GBTA is actually an excellent report that gives a good overview on what the demand and supply side are saying on this. So I would say, for me personally, I'm here, I came by train, so travel has definitely resumed. And it's the same thing we see for Radisson Hotel Group in our business. So before the pandemic, we were at about 50-50 split between leisure and business travel with a slight, business travel being slightly ahead. Coming out of the pandemic last year, there was another portion of leisure, 70% leisure. And I would say right now we are almost back to the 50-50. Within business travel, we for the first time now start tracking business leisure, as we call it, so Bleisure. And we are at about 16%. We can track it in our own booking channels, but that gives you a rough idea on this new category that we are actually tracking. And I would say when we talk about, we have 95,000 employees in our system, meaning in our hotels, in our offices, in our hotel network around the world. And what we do is we practice what we preach and what we offer to our clients, I would say. So first of all, we are a very international team, and we have a very international team per definition, also in our head offices. In total, we have about close to 100 nationalities in our company. So a lot of these people have, for example, families or next of kin who are living in other places than where they work. So what we do is we practice what we preach. We have committed to net zero by 2050. So the first thing was to include sustainability in our own travel policies. So we have really done that by adjusting the proposed solutions when you fly, when you take the train. As I said, I came here by train. It was a fantastically easy and seamless journey. So that's the first thing we do. Then also on mobility, I think another thing we are doing and what we really need to promote with our employees is e-mobility. You know, electrical mobility, we are moving our own car fleets to electrical mobility. We are facilitating that. And then lastly, it's the way we meet. I mean, we are meeting here in this panel. It's a great example. We have people dialing in remotely. We facilitate larger participation, and we practice hybrid meetings in our own meetings and events. So that's also what we do to facilitate the fact that we work together globally. We have the technology, we have the systems for it. So we do that in our own conferences. For example, we hosted a conference called Radisson Live for our sales and our big clients, and we did that on 5 key locations around the world, simultaneously with speakers going from one to the other, which actually increased the participation level and made it all possible through technology. So I do think that in the technology, in the policies, in what we enable, we actually enable this combination of work, leisure, different ways of meeting.
And it's fantastic that we're able to do that today with technology, of course. Do you have, just as a follow-up question that came to my mind while hearing you speak, was there any kind of initiative you were thinking about doing that didn't work out and you realized you couldn't do it and couldn't put it in your policy?
I think it's all about knowing where you want to go. I think what we haven't done at Radisson is
Je pense que c'est surtout de savoir en fait où on veut aller. Je crois que chez Radisson, on n'a pas encore toutes les options disponibles. On parle beaucoup des digital nomades, qu'est-ce que staycation comme on dit. Et en fait, dans notre entreprise, on a toujours besoin finalement que les gens voilà, reviennent voir leur équipe à un certain moment, en fait. C'est important pour nous de garder ce contact et c'est aussi un point important finalement hein, pour attirer de nouveaux talents. Mais pour l'instant, c'est pas quelque chose qu'on a encore intégré directement à nos processus, hein. Oui, alors je pense qu'on s'y retrouve hein, finalement dans ce que vous dites. Et c'est aussi une question assez délicate. Il faut effectivement trouver hein, le bon équilibre, ce qui n'est pas toujours facile. Brune, j'espère que vous êtes avec nous aussi. J'aimerais maintenant voilà, vous poser un petit peu des questions. Je sais que vous avez aussi pas mal d'expérience hein, pour tout ce qui est hébergement aussi. Est-ce que vous avez la même expérience? Comment ça se passe au sein de votre propre organisation? Qu'en est-il aussi peut-être des initiatives à court terme et à long terme? Voilà, qu'en est-il un petit peu? Alors déjà, merci à tous. Je suis ravie d'être avec vous ce matin et je suis ravie aussi que tout se déroule dans un hôtel Accor. J'aimerais beaucoup être avec vous en chair et en os, mais malheureusement, ça ne m'était pas possible. Alors, pour revenir à vos questions,
I could give an answer which is very similar to what Inge has just said, and actually we're doing a lot of work together, so it's no surprise. So perhaps let me add to what Inge said, which is quite similar to what we're doing at Accor. Perhaps let me add the fact that we also, we want to, it's not perfect, but we developed a net zero carbon calculator. We did it in close partnership with My Climate, which is an organization that is actually really focusing on compensation, and it's one of the best organizations to do that, using our energy, water, waste data to help offer some of our guests, and mostly, the MICE community, to offer them the opportunity not only to know and to become more aware of the CO2 emissions of their business meeting, but also allowing them to purchase carbon credits. So we all know that obviously compensating and buying credits is absolutely not the panacea. It's not, it's for lack of a better word, it's like a second best solution, but at least it's a first step. We want to also we want to go further than this. How? Well, by embracing external third-party certification. We believe that we need increasingly, what we need to show to a lot of our guests is that we actually do our very best to have the best operations possible, and that's why we want and we intend, and we've started actually with a lot of pilot projects to actually work hand in hand with some of international labels, such as, for example, Green Key. We've launched a partnership with the city of Marseille to sort of change slowly but surely the way we operate at our hotels to make them more sustainable. We believe that we need to go one step further as well, and that's why we've partnered with Energy Observer. So you may think, why Energy Observer is actually a boat that is focusing on developing and working out, also pushing the frontier of innovation, embracing green hydrogen. And so one of the objectives behind that is to really also help come up with and help sort of push the frontier of innovation to support the next stage of innovation, such as, for example, green hydrogen, and identifying how we could move and use that sort of new technologies and apply it to our hotel. So we're still in the early stages, but we believe this is also a route to explore. That said, we all know that business travel is clearly something that we need that has to change. And as a hospitality company, we have to work along that. We have to provide solutions that also help find alternatives to business travel. And what it means also is that we need to rethink also part of the mission of the role of our hotels. How can we make and how can we turn our hotels into more than places where people come and stay for a few hours and just use a bed basically and have breakfast? How can we do more with our hotels so that they don't depend as much as they used to on international travel, and international business travel, which we know is deeply linked to aviation. And we know there are regulations coming up that will aim to curb actually and to align some of the requirements on the aviation sector, align them with other sectors of the economy. So this really asks questions, deep questions for the hospitality industry, which we're trying to tackle, as I said, by really rethinking the role of a hotel, and also beyond that, for example, that's what we did with the lifestyle sector that we're developing fast. But I don't want to speak for too long, and probably I'll come back to that at a later stage if you wish.
Thank you, Brune. Yes, there are certain points in there where I definitely want to circle back on. Very interesting. You already touched on some of those things also in terms of adapting to then what your customers need. Do you have, as a quick and short follow-up question, just because I'm curious, do you have a good understanding of your own business travel internally, of how much, how many emissions that are, and how much of a part of your overall emissions it has? Inge was already touching on the measurement part a little bit.
So we are actually in the process of measuring it. Obviously, it also really depends on, I mean, giving you a figure right now would not be sort of really emblematic of where we stand today. Why? Because, as you know, we're in 110 countries around the world. And in some countries, for example, mostly in Asia, people are still in lockdowns. So I don't think it would be sort of very relevant to actually use a figure as of today, because, you know, COVID is still hitting some part of the world. That said, what I can tell you is that we're actively trying to curb our, and we've changed our travel policy, trying to curb our business travel. Obviously for financial reasons, but also to mitigate and try and reduce our carbon impact, because, you know, we've committed, and we're one of the first hospitality companies to have committed to, you know, the most ambitious carbon neutrality objectives, which is to take part in making sure that the world achieves net zero by 2050. And so we are on a 1.5 trajectory. That's how we think. And so it requires clearly questioning the way we travel. And that's hence the new policy that we've put in place after COVID.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't actually asking for a direct number, so sorry if that was you felt pressured there. But just to understand a little bit how what the situation is, because obviously we all know there's always room for improvement in terms of monitoring in all of the companies, and so I'll pass that a little bit on also to John in terms of. Well, first of all, how does the situation look on your side in a different kind of company? Do you have, where are you at this moment internally, at least in business travel, and where is it going? And are you monitoring, for example?
Yes, we do.
All right.
So I can elaborate, maybe. No, it's a serious topic, and it's something that we took seriously. We started in 2005 when we joined the UN Global Compact program, saying that when you are a mobility provider, and especially when you are moving cars, there is obviously a risk of greenwashing. So this is why we decided to be certified by SBTi, and all the companies that have been through this process know that it is a serious one. And it is sometimes painful, because in terms of reporting, it is not really simple. And as far as I know, it's sure we are the first mobility provider that has been certified by SBTi, and probably we are the only one. So the ambition is to reduce the scope 1 and 2 by 46% by 2030, which means that we have to act, and we have to act on the travel policy, obviously. So to do so, nothing very fancy, quite simple. Just to put and impose the same tool to everybody to make the booking, which have a carbon calculation integrated on it. And then we have the control via the tool itself, because of course we are only loading a specific type of travel. And the validation is done at the JEC level, which is a group executive committee level, which means that there is still a human control, but the human control is quite efficient. When we are talking about our travel policy, we are also talking obviously about our own car policy, because at the headquarters we have more than 100 cars. So we moved, of course, to EVs and PHEVs, even if it is not that easy to buy EVs, because there is a lack of offer at the moment. And the issue is that we had, the fact is that we had to go through a Chinese constructor, which is another topic. But beside the fact that we are pushing people from to EVs and PHEVs, we also offered, since the last 3 years, the opportunity for employees to give up their car and get a mobility budget instead of it. It does have, unfortunately, and especially in France, some tax impact, but we are compensating that, and we are working on that, and probably for the regulator, this is a topic that should be or could be tackled in order to make it more efficient. And finally, it's clear that we still have a long journey. We are not perfect. However, I am quite proud to say that last week we have been awarded the platinum level by EcoVadis, which means that we are in the top 1% companies in terms of CSR. So we are taking it as serious as possible, and even if it is not an easy journey, if I can say.
Thank you, John. That's very interesting, and congratulations on that one. We know that's a lot of work. Let's stay just 1 second with emissions, because I'll be the devil's advocate a little bit as well. I don't think I've ever really seen car rental statistics, I guess, on the impact within the travel and tourism industry. I mean, I know, and I've seen, we know all, it's about 8 to 11% the impact that travel and tourism has on emissions globally. And the global emissions, we have 47% of transportation, and that is the 16-70% of air. Cruise, I think, was not even 1%. Road transport, I've seen 14 or 20%. Do you have a feeling of the contribution of the car rental industry, and that's going to be the, I guess, the jump to the adaptation of companies to satisfy the changing demands. What can a company like yours do to become more sustainable, or claim to be more sustainable?
In fact, you started to say, I rented a car. And if you say that you are renting a car, you are part of the problem. If you say that you used a shared car, you are part of the solution.
Do you have that?
A car rental is a shared car. Car sharing has not been invented a few years ago. Car sharing has been invented by the car rental companies. We are sharing cars. This is exactly the same process. And the goal and the objective is to offer an attractive and efficient alternative to the car ownership. So we are providing a mobility that is more efficient, not because it is our cars, just because of our business model. We are buying cars for a very short period of time, which, because of the COVID, have been slightly expanded, but it's still less than 1 year, which means that we have the most efficient cars, obviously. Today it's slightly 40% better than the average fleet in Europe. And by 2024, it will be 50% better because of the electrification. And also because we decided to move forward also in terms of financing through a green bond. So we are committed to have 20% of green cars by 2024, and it will support that. But what I would like to say is that the car, if it is properly used, is necessary and is not that bad. The issue is the bad usage of the car and the fact that the fleet is quite old across Europe.
That sounds like a lot of investment you need in order to update the fleet in the next few years to reach those goals you have. Is the next step then carpooling in a destination, so I can share my rented car with someone else who's there for 3 weeks working?
In fact, we are doing the carpooling. You're finding now some tools in order to share your own cars, or some new players are selling the cars plus offering the opportunity to share the cars. But this is our business model, and this is what we are doing. We are providing a booking tool, and we are sharing the car. Yes, we are not yet offering you the opportunity to sub-rent your car where you are renting the car. But we would enter into insurance problem on all. But why not? It could be a next step. Thank you for the idea.
I'll take credit for it later. What are some of those bottlenecks, really quickly, just as a short, well, I know that's a difficult question for a short answer.
I am French, so I can complain and I can talk about bottlenecks for very long, so maybe I will come back later because, by the way, hey, look at that panel. I am the only man. And this is the first time I've seen only one man with 4 women, so congratulations for the choice, and I am very impressed.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to you on that one then. I'll move to Inge first to tell us a little bit about how you need to adapt within your hotels to the changing demands. What are kind of the 1, 2, 3 top initiatives you feel like that really need to be done quickly? And some of the bottlenecks maybe as well.
Okay, I will first talk about opportunities. I think if there's one thing that the COVID crisis has learned all of us, is that we need to be agile and we need to react quickly to changes. And that's what we did. So I think the first change that we made is in our brands. You know, what we have done is for these remote workers, for people working in hotels, because we also, during the pandemic and at the outset, when we came out of the pandemic, we started having people who live in very small apartments in big cities who wanted to come to the comfortable environment of a hotel to work from there. So we put technology in place. We call them hybrid rooms, which is actually a nice term to say that you put the technology in place, the right Wi-Fi, the right technology in the guest rooms, so that you and everyone else can come into hotels and work comfortably from your room and from the lobby if you want to. So that's one. We also installed hybrid meeting rooms. So I talked about that earlier. We equipped all our meeting rooms with technology. We made a partnership with Zoom. We offer studios so you can do fantastic events and have them live and broadcast them. So it's all about technology. It's also about redefining the brand and, to Brune's point, a bit the role of the hotel. If you think about it today, we are redefining our resorts value proposition. Why? Because we know that the classic, let's say, use of the resort is not the same as before. You may have people who come there with a group of friends to work and stay for a while. So we need to redefine that value proposition. We also have many more. We are focusing heavily on growing our portfolio of serviced apartments or long stay properties, or we combining the traditional hotel with a long stay property next door. So in the branding, you see really that change. What we also do, and I keep on repeating it, and the lady from Google yesterday, she said it, it needs to be a frictionless experience. So what we do is we make it easy to do good by booking right. I keep on saying this. It's about showing people what is a sustainable hotel, where do you have all those technologies, but also which hotel is green, which hotel is sustainable. And we do this with the pathway, which starts with hotel sustainability basics. And we're working with Accor and many partners on this. So make it easy for travelers to understand which hotel is sustainable and where they can do this. We also offer 100% carbon neutral meetings, and actually we've been starting to do this before the pandemic. So since before the pandemic, beginning of 2019, we made all our meetings and events carbon neutral. It is through carbon offsetting and of course by reducing first the footprint of our hotels, and then the remaining footprint is offset. And we do that centrally and at no cost for the meeting booker or the company. So we make it easy to make these sustainable choices. I think those are the key things we are doing. In terms of bottlenecks, I don't really see many, unless you find something or you give us another idea like you did for the gentleman next to me. But I think it's all about speed. It's all about speed of rollout, making it available, making sure that the rollout is consistent everywhere. If you have a portfolio of more than 1,100 hotels around the world, it's about creating that consistency. So that is the thing that we're working on. But the core elements are there on the technology side, on making it easy to be sustainable.
Do you think you have a bit of a competitive advantage in that sense compared to, for example, holiday apartments? And because you can roll it out in all of your hotels in the same way?
Yeah, I think, that's a whole other topic. So again, we could do a full other panel, I think, on that one. But what is key, I think there are other aspects. It's the technology aspect, it's the consistency aspect, but it's also the duty of care and the safety and security aspect. I had safety and security as well for Radisson Hotel Group. And I must say that is the one thing that you're gonna get, apart from every other benefit of brand consistency, et cetera, in a branded hotel, whether it's us or any of the other big brands, you're gonna get that attention to safety and security. You're gonna know that when there's an earthquake somewhere, when there's a natural disaster, when there is a political uprising, when there is instability, you have teams who will take care of you. We know what duty of care means. We work with all kinds of global corporate clients. So I think that's the one thing where we do have an advantage. And on sustainability, I also said that before, it's not a competitive advantage, it's a collaborative space.
I'm glad you're saying that and highlighting that again. Brune, maybe from your perspective, as well as an accommodation provider, I assume you're doing many of the same things. You already said there's lots of collaboration as well in the sector, and we know that the accommodation sector has been very active in trying to move forward with the sustainability and everything around it. Is there still space to differentiate yourself? Is it more, how important is that collaboration right now for the next years to come? And besides the basics initiative that you were just mentioning, is there anything else on the radar for you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's just like what Inge has said. I mean, basically, we know that we're facing intractable challenges. Climate change and biodiversity loss, rising inequalities, social inequalities, geopolitical tensions, the digital revolution. It's impossible to think that we are going to solve those problems by not collaborating. These are so huge, so systemic, that we have to partner, and to also partner with our competitors firsthand, because these are solutions that we're going to build together. There's no other way, basically. And so I think really what was typical of the last century, of the previous century, was that we were not able to collaborate. Everybody was sort of working in silos, companies, private companies, in their own sort of corridor, NGOs in their own silos, governments, and everybody was working in silo. Now what we need to do is really work together, break those silos, because this is how, and only how, we will actually find solutions to those challenges. And that's what we do concretely. We do that, for example, by partnering and coming all together within the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. And it's actually vital for the industry. Radisson is part of it, obviously, and I'm sure Inge can talk about that as well. But we strongly believe it's vital for the industry also, because otherwise you don't want to make sustainability. Actually, sustainability could potentially hamper and hinder your competitiveness. I mean, we are European companies. In Europe, the regulation is really stringent, and it's becoming more and more demanding. And that's really good news. And we want to be regulated. We should be regulated more, because there is an urgency, and we have to become more sustainable. But it's not the case for other, for example, US companies. The regulation is not the same for them. So they can basically free ride while we're making a lot of efforts, investing to find solutions, and then they come afterwards and they basically use the same solutions without having made the efforts before. I'm sort of exaggerating here. But how do we create a platform where we can all collaborate and avoid that sort of free rider approach? Well, it's only by collaborating, by coming up with joint initiatives. That's what we do on net zero carbon. That's what we do, for example, on human rights and on all sort of issues. So that's one way of collaborating. Another one, obviously, is more at the level of the company itself, is how to collaborate with the wider environment. How do you make that? I touched on that before. How do you make a hotel more than a hotel? How can a hotel, instead of just being plugged on a territory or in a city or in an area, can actually become an active member of development of that area? How can we contribute more as an industry, as a company? How can a hotel actually be a source for better management of agriculture, for example, by sourcing local food? How can a hotel, and I have plenty of examples, can actually work more with the local communities by providing opportunities, by giving an opportunity to people to actually use their talent and do the most of it? How can a hotel become a bank of construction materials, so that when it becomes something else, we can reuse the materials? All of that is absolutely critical, and we've started actively to work on that. We have hotels who actually do more business with the local community, either by employing the local people in the local community, but also by welcoming those people. That's what we call the lifestyle sector, and that's what, and we see it has tremendous success. And we do a lot of our actually a lot of our revenue comes from the people in the area who come and shop in our hotels, or who come and eat and stay in our bars and restaurants. And so these are sort of two types of collaboration that help us really rethink the way we do business. Because if we are to tackle sustainability in a really impactful way, as in not doing incremental changes, but really, really going to the level of what is expected, if we are to reach carbon neutrality by 2050, we have no choice but to rethink deeply our business model and what a hotel is.
And I think the Bleisure segment, if we're coming back to that one, having people staying longer in destinations and experiencing your hotels, that does give an opportunity for building probably loyalty, right? Return to the destinations, and really building a much stronger relationship with the local communities and what's going on in there. So
it's basically, how do you change all the incentives?
Yeah.
They have to be very, very different from, before we committed to, all of us, carbon neutrality, or before we actually tried to work on sustainability. These are completely different. It means the loyalty systems have to be almost, sort of rewarding, train rather than flying, actually staying for longer period of time. Anyway, I can go on for hours, but what it means is that we need a disruptive change to the system.
Thank you. Yeah, there's some. We could go on for this on this forever. I do want to give John a chance to come back one more time to a bottleneck, maybe in the connection as well with collaboration. Other collaborations within your car rental industry where that is helping with those bottlenecks. Just give us maybe one clear or two clear examples, and then I want to come back to Catherine, of course, who gave us the introduction, to have a final question for her.
So in terms of Bleisure, for us, it's quite difficult to have that many people working from home, because we need the people at the station to serve the consumer. So there is basically no choice. So we offer that, of course, at the headquarters, but it's not easy for us to do that everywhere. And then in terms of other bottleneck, for us, it's obviously the roadmap to the electrification, because we do have the ambition and the goal to be 100% EVs by 2036. However, the roadmap is quite a question mark, because today there is a lack of offer, as I said earlier. It's extremely complicated to buy EVs. There is no EVs on the market, not enough EVs on the market. There is a lack of demand, and there is a lack of demand because today there is still some fear from people to rent cars when they go, especially when they go on holidays, because of course it depends on the usage. If we are talking about our car sharing activities, we can be 100% EVs, but if we are talking about traditional leisure business, it's difficult because of the infrastructure, which is the biggest bottleneck, the lack of infrastructure. It's clear that today it is not at the level that it should be, and in addition to that, it is quite complex, because most of the time, we are the first electric experience from consumer. So we are a fantastic accelerator of the transition. We are a fantastic opportunity to educate people, but the experience has to be good. And if you don't know how it works, it's not that simple, because people, we are providing the car, we are telling them experience is fantastic. But when you go to the pole, to the charging point with your credit card, because you are used to do that, and you cannot use your credit card because you cannot pay with your credit card, you have to download an app. So you download the app. You don't know how much you are paying. You don't know, there is no price transparency. There is no reference. And then you are moving away a few kilometers. You have to recharge. You go to another pole. You are super happy because you already have your app. Bad luck, this is not the same furnisher, so you have to download a second app, and you still don't know how much you are going to pay. So there is definitely a lack of harmonization. We should, at least EU level, organize the roaming, if I can say, of the charging poles, and make it much more transparent to the consumer. And one second, sorry. So in terms of business travel, yes, we do have a competitive advantage, if I can say, because due to the ESG obligation from the different companies on the purchase the procurement. The procurement guys of the different companies, we have the track records. That is obviously an advantage. For the leisure part, it is less obvious because it's still very price sensitive.
I hear, infrastructure, a big topic in all of that, and information for the traveler. Inge, I know that's a topic close to your heart, and I see you putting down notes there. Do you want to say something to that?
Just really quickly, I think the EV is a key point. I drive an EV, I love it, but it's true, we talked about it. It's when you stay in your comfort zone, you know, this is my route from home to work, etc. So then it's easy, but when you move out of your comfort zone, when you move to new destinations, it needs to be easy. And I think also that's where we can work across different sections in tourism and travel, because for example, in Radisson Hotel Group, we are putting EV chargers in all our hotels in Europe. We already have more than 500 charging points, and we have it as a clear plan to equip all of them. Of course, they need to have space, some parking spots, etc., but with regular EV charging and even high-performance chargers, which is a whole other subject. So I think that's where collaboration, again, can be actually something we can do together, because we can make it easier for the traveler to travel sustainably, basically.
Yeah. I'm glad I gave ideas for an app and for collaboration here coming out of this panel. Catherine, from a perspective from GBTA, just as final words to round this up, you have a role of bringing different organizations together. You have a role in leading some of the collaboration initiatives. We've heard infrastructure, we heard information that needs to be more accessible. Are there any kind of initiatives on the horizon from your side? What's your role in all of this, maybe in general, and some of the instruments, how you can help this process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, as an association, we are here to serve our members. And, you know, with GBTA, what we see ourselves as, most importantly, a platform where the many voices of business travel can come together and can work out what the solution is, you know, and the point has been made time and time again on this panel. It's about collaboration, and we provide a platform for that. And, you know, whether it's within the membership, where it's about best practice on what their travel policy should be, the whole thing around sharing best practice around how to create a frictionless experience, or education of leadership as to why this is important, and in the production of tools like our sustainability toolkit, the data, or you know, say again, that sharing of best practice. But in terms of if we're talking about policy from an advocacy perspective, the EU has published its Green Deal. It has a number of different types of legislation that is coming down the track, and there are various consultations underway. I spent 3 hours yesterday in a workshop around count emissions EU, and you know what we know from in terms of a sustainability perspective, the reporting is absolutely key. It has to be with reliable data and comparable data. At the minute, there's can be up to a 55% variance on the emissions that you can calculate from one trip. That's not right, and so we are working to help to guide that particular legislation to make sure that it meets the needs of the business travel industry. In terms of connectivity, there's the multimodal digital services consultation that's coming along, and that's absolutely huge, because so much about it is for people to make the right choice. It's about having that available and visible to them, and having the connectivity so that you can compare a trip that has rail only, air versus rail, combination of air and rail, so and understanding what the impact of that decision is. And then another aspect of it is around passenger rights, and there's a consultation on that. So that's just a small segment of what's going on, and we are actively participating in those consultations. We are based on the advice and guidance and positions that are provided to us by our members. And then we're seeking to partner with other associations that can help in the development of the infrastructure as well, that is so important, particularly around things like EVs. So So yeah, I think it's a really exciting time. I think there's definitely a sense of urgency, and there is, you know, a great desire to build a more sustainable future and to support this. So, and you know, and we're really keen to open and collaborate with whoever shares our goal for that.
Thank you, Catherine. Lots of things going on. I think what this panel made clear today is that this is, there are so many facets in all of this, on all of the different sides, and collaboration is reaching, in terms of importance, we've never had more urgency and to collaborate on all of those things together. I think we, hopefully through some good seeds for thought in this round right here. I know there are many things that we could continue to discuss. There are, in the next few weeks, more opportunities and events for people to discuss this. Right here, after this panel, we have another one, well, a case study and then a panel that is staying with the topic, and they're continuing a little bit that line of thought. And then, of course, we have GBTA. Catherine, right, you guys have on the 8th of November your Sustainability Summit. We have WTM coming up, COP is coming up, so there are lots of opportunities in the next few weeks for that. For now, that is the end. I thank all of you, all of the 4 panelists that they've joined and shared their knowledge in an honest and open way as usual, and everyone who was here listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and a good rest of the conference. Thank you.